viewers out there. My name is Heinrich Neetlen and welcome to Mathematical Literacy. In today's lesson, we'll focus on the concept of probability. Right, and I call this lesson an introduction to probability. So we're going to keep it quite simple today. But before I start with the lesson, let me quickly check with you. Did you know that it is estimated that if you played 100 games of Lotto a year, for 1,500 years, you would expect to win the jackpot only once, right? And interestingly so, you would also have to spend twice the amount of money that you would have won. Right, so that is quite interesting. Okay, so what is it that I'll expect of you in today's lesson? So here are our lesson objectives. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to understand the probability range scale, and we'll look at that as we continue. You must be able to express probability using fractions, percentages, as well as the decimal notation. Also important is that you must be able to recognize the difference between an event and an outcome. So we'll be looking at event and outcome. Then also you must be able to interpret situations involving probability. And then also you must be able to perform calculations involving probability. So that are our lesson objectives. Now let's quickly look at what you should know at this moment in time. And I call this section pre-knowledge. So we are saying here that probability is the chance or likelihood of an event occurring. So basically the chance of something happening, right? And then it can be expressed as a percentage, as a common fraction, or as a decimal. Also important to note is that the formula that we use when we calculate probability is, we say probability of an event, remember that event can take on any form, is where we take the number of favorable outcomes divided by the number of our possible outcomes. I'm going to repeat that. You take the number of favorable outcomes divided by the total number of possible outcomes. All right, so now we'll be looking at what this lesson will be all about. So here indicated, we'll start with looking at the probability scale, and thereafter we'll do some calculations involving probability. Okay, now let's quickly do a quick practice. And if you've listened to the first part of this lesson, you should find this quite easy. So the first question here, define the term probability. Remember we said probability is the chance, and I'm going to write it down for you. Okay, or the likelihood of something happening. So we check what's the chance of something to occur, right? The chance of something happening. Okay, I put that in simple terms, and that should be a sufficient definition for what probability is. The chance or likelihood of something happening or occurring. Then, question number 2. State whether the following statement is true or false. So let's see what is the statement. The universal symbol for calculating probability of an event is P in brackets event. Right? So that is indeed true. Okay, so remember that's the universal symbol that we're going to use is the capital letter P symbol. Then, moving on to our next question. Question number 3. The formula used to calculate the probability is, remember I indicated already, so we are saying the probability of an event is where, what needs to happen? We get the favorable outcomes, so we say it's the amount of favorable outcomes. Right, favorable outcomes, and we divide that, so I'm going to say divided by your total number of possible outcomes. Right, so you take your favorable outcomes and you divide that by your total number of possible outcomes. So that's the answer to question number 3. And then we also have here one question number 4 that says, name one numerical way in which we can express probability. Remember we said we can express probability as a decimal. Okay, so that will be sufficient, but what else can we use? All right, basically we can express probability using any number between 0 and 1. We can express probability using a decimal number. We can express probability using a fraction. All right. So let's quickly move on to what else you should know. Right, so these are the terminology, the language we use in probability, and I want you to familiarize yourselves with it, because once you understand the language behind probability, you'll find the calculations of it to be easy. So I'm saying here, a trial or experiment is an activity which involves observing and recording the results. For example, flipping a coin, right? So there will be a trial or experiment. Then when we look at outcome, the outcome is the result of a trial or experiment. For example, obtaining a heads after you flip the coin, right? So we have a trial, flipping a coin, the outcome can either be heads or tails, right? So then I also listed event. The event is something that happens, a set of outcomes of a trial, right? For example, spades, diamonds, hearts, when choosing a suit from a deck of cards. Then, what is the probability scale? Right? It's a scale which can be used to plot the probability of an event happening. And then we also indicated here, frequency is the number of times an outcome has occurred. All right, guys, let us quickly take a short advert break. After the break, we'll continue with more probability. See you now.